I was going to make a video about the nonsense that Bernie Sanders said about Kamala Harris, but you know what? I would like to focus on something positive instead. And, Bernie bros can come for me tomorrow if I decide to talk about that bullshit then. But this quote right here, women will need to save us all from the fascist regime, and we need to move into the matriarchy. Women need to stop taking this bullshit. I'm glad to see so many women decenter men. Let's turn toward each other and create a matriarchy that can stop this. There's been a lot of this kind of discourse over the last week on TikTok, and I'm here for it. And I'm going to get men in my comments who are not going to enjoy this video and are going to say, oh, you're a man-hating misandrist. No, I just believe in the power of women. I believe very much that we should be moving toward a matriarchal system. If only women had the right to vote, almost every state in the union would be entirely blue. If only women had the right to vote, we would have a very different country than we have now. And I'm not talking about taking away rights from men, but some of y'all know right before the election, I was growing increasingly frustrated with using the term leftist to describe myself because I was so ashamed at the behavior of other leftists online, the never Kamala leftists. Particularly the amount of really overt anti-blackness I saw from them and the way they were discouraging other people from showing up to vote. And also just the intense purity testing and one-upmanship and snobbery, not to mention the childism, classism, wild from the left, the classism and the ableism that seemed so rampant. And the longer I was on TikTok, because I was pretty new to TikTok back when this was happening during Kamala's campaign, the amount of really overt anti-blackness and misogyny that I saw was very disturbing to me because like leftists I know, people in my community were not like that. Not the way people on the left have deconstructed from all of their racism, and not that all men on the left in real life have also deconstructed from the patriarchy. I'm not saying that. But I said I'm increasingly uncomfortable with calling myself a leftist, even though my politics are very far left for America. I'm constantly engaged in harm reduction voting because there's never going to be a politician whose opinions and position and platform are as left as mine are. I'm an anti-capitalist who believes that we should have income caps and redistribution of resources. We should have fair share. I also want things like universal health care, high-speed rail, paid maternity and paternity leave for everybody in this country, stronger workers' rights, solar panels on our roofs, better rainwater capture, better environmental protections. Like I just go on and on. I'm never going to get a politician that aligns with me. But more and more, I found that other people on the left didn't really seem to be aligning with my values, especially my permaculture values of earth care, people care, and fair share. And so I've really shied away from using that label. I like to say post-capitalist or anti-capitalist or permaculturist, which then I always have to describe what that means because people have their preconceived notions or they've never heard the term before. But then the other day, I saw this video and it's so good.
Back in the day when I was a baby leftist, I used to see Black elders in the community always go out of their way to not identify as leftist. And when I was in my 20s, I never thought too deep into it because I had a million other things going on, right? But this was something that I consistently noticed, that Black elders, especially women, especially Black women elders, would make it a point to be clear that they did not consider themselves leftists. And I thought it was confusing because from my perspective, they held leftist values. So why were they so hell-bent on not being identified as leftists? But I never thought much deeper than that. Fast forward to 2025. After this election season and all that we've experienced with these online so-called never Kamala leftists, I understood clear as motherfucking day why those elders refuse to identify themselves as leftists. I understand clear as day. And when have white men ever collectively given a damn about the human population? When have white men ever historically and collectively shown that they are the people we should look to for community building and organizing society? If your ideology is not holding Black women, especially, but women in general, but Black women, Indigenous women, Black people, Indigenous people, if your ideology is not upholding folks like that and their perspectives and their philosophies, then I don't want to hear it.
First of all, obviously go follow Priscilla immediately. Her takes are they're so good. She's absolutely right. She's absolutely right. When have men in their revolutionary movements ever prioritized women, children, disabled folks, the elderly? Indigenous folks, Black folks, the folks who are the most vulnerable in any population. White men's movements are all about power and control, dominance and submission. That's why I think so many young white men really love authoritarian communism. And why so many white men, God, not to talk about horseshoe theory, so many white men also really love fascism. As long as we're dreaming about what kind of America we want after all of this nonsense when we have to rebuild, why not? Why not want a matriarchal society? Why not push for a matriarchal society that prioritizes people care, earth care, community care over oppression, dominance, the wants of the individual? Why not dream about and plan for that kind of a society? I mean, we know there's a study from the World Economic Forum from a couple of years ago that showed that women in matriarchal societies have better health and live longer, that children do better, and that everybody in the society has a higher quality of life. Men are afraid of what kind of society women would build because men wouldn't be able to dominate and oppress all of the rest of us, white men in particular. There was a MAGA chud in my comments this morning who was talking about how excited he was to have the 19th Amendment repealed. Miley Biggs, who is running for Arizona Senate, who is the daughter of MAGA Congressman Andy Biggs, had also said she thought maybe the 19th Amendment should be repealed because maybe women shouldn't be voting. Because if women have the power, then we don't choose Republicans, we don't choose oppression. If women are empowered to vote, then we would pick a society very different than the one we're living in now. That's why they're desperate to control us. They're desperate to suppress our voices. They're desperate to turn us into, baby machines and maids for them. They fear us. MAGA men really fear us and our power. And how we could build a society that cares for everybody instead of a society where a few live in extravagant wealth while the rest of us suffer. That's what the white dudes want in their Christo-fascist, white Christian nationalist vision that they're trying to bring about in this country. So if you're interested in building a matriarchy, let me give you one easy suggestion for how you can kind of shift your thinking and your mindset and start to dream of a better future. Follow Black women creators. That's a very, very easy first step. When I first got on TikTok, I intentionally decided to follow people who had a very different lived experience than me. If I saw a Black woman in my feed or an Indigenous woman in my feed, I would just hit follow. That very, very quickly changed my TikTok experience from like bird videos and permaculture gardening videos. And of course, the algorithm would try and show me like Mormon mommy blogger content. I'm not interested. But oh yes, I want to see more of these Black women who are talking about their lived experience and perspective. And immediately my feed was much better. Now the algorithm has been through several more shifts since then, not for the better. And this past week, I made a point of going back through my following list and searching out and looking for videos from Black women that I follow. And then once again, if I saw a Black woman in my feed this week, I just hit follow every time. And now my kind of content that I'm seeing in my feed has changed significantly in the last few days. For the better, for the better. If you want to cultivate a better mindset, if you want to think about what kind of world we could dream for, if you want to listen to people who know what they're talking about, start following Black women creators. I'm not trying to tokenize y'all, I'm saying broaden your perspective. Don't follow people who are just like you, who have the same lived experience as you. I promise you, make an intentional effort to follow Black and Indigenous women creators. And start thinking about what would it look like to create a matriarchy in the United States? How would we be able to better care for all of us? What kind of prosperity and equality could that bring for us? Because that is such a worthy vision. It's far better than that communist revolution or descent into fascism. What would it look like to create a matriarchal society where the people who understand cooperation, mutual respect, caregiving, collective decision-making, justice, accountability, compassion, got to shape America going forward?